Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are, well, kind of going deep on something intensely personal.
Mm.
Yeah, Lorenzo's astrological predictions for the March 14th, 2025 lunar eclipse in Virgo, particularly what it means for you as an Aquarius.
It sounds intense, and it is. This isn't like, your typical new moon, new you eclipse. This one's got some serious, some serious karmic weight behind it. And we're here to help you understand Lorenzo's insights and help you, navigate this potentially tumultuous cosmic event.
Okay, so Lorenzo, for those who might not know, Lorenzo's not your typical astrologer. I mean, this guy's predictions are known for their shocking accuracy.
Right.
And his insights go way beyond, feel-good symbolism. He's diving deep into planetary movements and how they directly impact you.
Exactly. And Lorenzo is very clear that this particular eclipse is a big deal, especially for Aquarians. Like he's saying, it has the power to unearth hidden truths and trigger significant life shifts.
Whoa, okay. So no pressure or anything, right?
Right. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. To understand why this eclipse is so different, we need to look at the specific astrological aspects at play. Lorenzo points out that this lunar eclipse in Virgo falls in the 8th house, which is traditionally associated with death and rebirth.
Death and rebirth. Okay, that sounds pretty heavy.
It is, and to add to that, it's conjunct the South Node, which in astrology represents karmic baggage. Lorenzo is basically saying this eclipse is going to force you to confront all the stuff you've been sweeping under the rug.
Right.
Relationships, finances, fears, you name it.
So it's like a cosmic cleanup crew is coming in and saying, all right, time to deal with this mess.
Exactly. And the tarot card Lorenzo associates with this eclipse is the 10 of Pentacles.
Okay, so 10 of Pentacles, what does that tell us?
It symbolizes family, legacy, and material security. Lorenzo says these areas of your life are about to undergo a major shakeup. But he's very specific in saying this isn't just about letting go, it's about recognizing what has already let go of you.
Interesting. So it's not about making a choice. It's about accepting what's already happening on an energetic level.
Precisely. He even calls this a karmic exit, not just a lesson. Like, you've already been evicted from a certain reality, whether you realize it or not.
So clinging to that old reality is kind of like trying to break back into a house that's that's already been boarded up.
Exactly. Lorenzo actually uses a similar analogy. He says it's like trying to enter a house that's already burned down. You can try to go back in, but there's nothing left there.
Okay, so trying to resist this cosmic shift is going to be, probably pretty futile and probably painful.
Definitely. And Lorenzo goes on to explain that this forced exit is actually happening because of 5 major astrological aspects influencing this eclipse.
5. Wow, that sounds like a lot of cosmic energy focused on this one event.
It is. And Lorenzo dives into each aspect in detail. The first one he mentions is the sextile to Mars in Cancer in the 6th house. He connects this aspect to the Tower, Chariot, and Hierophant tarot cards.
Okay, let's break that down. Mars in Cancer, 6th house. That sounds like a recipe for some serious upheaval. What does Lorenzo say about this?
Well, the 6th house is all about work, health, and daily routines. Lorenzo says this aspect indicates explosive shifts in these areas, like a forced break from unsustainable situations.
So it's like if you've been feeling trapped in a dead-end job, or maybe you're stuck in a rut with your health, this eclipse is going to push you to make a change, whether you like it or not.
Exactly. He emphasizes the feeling of being trapped and then suddenly breaking free. He also says that with Mars in Cancer, there's a lot of emotional energy tied to these shifts.
Makes sense. Big changes, especially in those areas of life, usually come with a lot of emotional baggage.
Absolutely. And Lorenzo links this to the Tower Tarot card, which represents sudden and often disruptive change.
So it's not just change, it's a complete demolition of the old structure.
Right. But he also brings in the Chariot, which is about taking control and moving forward with determination. So there's a sense of agency here, too, even amidst the chaos. And finally, he ties in the Hierophant, suggesting that you'll need to tap into your inner strength and discipline to navigate these changes successfully.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack with just one aspect.
It is, and we've got 4 more to go.
Okay, bring it on. What's the next aspect Lorenzo highlights?
The second major aspect is the opposition to Saturn in Pisces in the 2nd house. And he connects this one to the World, Moon, and Devil cards.
Saturn in the 2nd house, that sounds like it's going to hit us right in the wallet.
It is. The 2nd house rules finances, self-worth, and values. And Saturn is the planet of restriction, responsibility, and facing reality. Lorenzo says this aspect is going to bring a brutal reality check when it comes to these areas of your life.
So any financial illusions we've been clinging to are going to be shattered.
Exactly. Lorenzo is very clear that this eclipse will expose any shaky foundations, especially those built on external validation or material possessions. He says you'll be forced to confront your deepest fears about money and security.
Ouch. That sounds like it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of
It
people.
will be for some, especially those who've been avoiding dealing with their finances or self-worth issues.
Right. So Lorenzo's basically saying, time to get real with yourself about your money and what truly matters to you.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that this is not a punishment, but an opportunity to build a more solid and sustainable foundation. He ties this in with the World card, which signifies completion and the end of a cycle.
So it's like the end of one chapter and we're being forced to close the book and move on.
Right. But then he brings in the Moon and the Devil cards, which add another layer of complexity to this aspect.
Okay, so the moon, that's all about emotions, illusions, and hidden truths. And the devil is about temptation, shadow work, and facing our deepest fears. How do those fit in?
Lorenzo says that the Moon is indicating a need to confront any illusions you've been holding on to, especially around your self-worth. He says this eclipse is going to pull back the curtain and force you to see the truth about what you truly value. And the Devil card ties into that by suggesting that you might have to face some uncomfortable truths about yourself, your shadow side, and what you might have been avoiding dealing with.
So it's a wake-up call, but also an opportunity to step into a more authentic version of ourselves.
Exactly.
All right, so we've covered two major aspects: explosive changes in work and health, and a brutal reality check when it comes to finances and self-worth. What's next?
The third aspect is the trine to Uranus in Taurus in the fourth house. Lorenzo connects this one with the Fool, the Hierophant, and the Moon.
Okay, so the fourth house is home, family, and emotional foundations. And Uranus is the planet of sudden change, innovation, and rebellion. This sounds like things are about to get shaken up on the home front.
Definitely. Lorenzo says this aspect indicates sudden upheavals in the home, family secrets coming to light, and a radical shift in your sense of security.
Whoa, so anything we've been relying on for emotional security might be pulled out from under us.
It's possible. Lorenzo emphasizes that with Uranus, change often comes unexpectedly and disrupts the status quo.
So buckle up, because things are about to get interesting.
Yeah.
What tarot cards does Lorenzo associate with this aspect?
He links it to the Fool, the Hierophant, and the Moon.
All right, so the Fool is all about new beginnings, taking risks, and stepping into the unknown. The Hierophant represents tradition, structure, and established systems. And the Moon, again, is about emotions, intuition, and the subconscious. How does Lorenzo tie all those together?
He says the Fool's energy suggests that you might be called to make a bold move, to step outside of your comfort zone and embrace a new direction, especially when it comes to your home or family life.
So it's like an invitation to break free from any outdated traditions or patterns that are no longer serving us.
Exactly. And he says the Hierophant is highlighting any conflicts between the old and the new. Like maybe there are family expectations or societal norms that are clashing with your desire for change.
Right, those shoulds and supposed tos that can keep us stuck in a rut.
Exactly. And then with the Moon, he emphasizes the emotional undercurrents at play here. He says there might be hidden truths or family secrets that come to light, forcing you to reevaluate your past and your emotional foundation.
Wow. So this aspect is really about shaking things up on a deep emotional level.
It is, and remember, all of this is happening within the context of the 8th house, which is about transformation and letting go. So it's not just about change, it's about a deep karmic cleansing.
Okay, so we've got explosive changes, a financial reality check, and a shakeup on the home front. What's the fourth aspect Lorenzo talks about?
The fourth aspect is the opposition to Neptune and Pisces in the 2nd house. And this one's connected to the Hanged Man, the Moon, and the Devil.
Wait, didn't we already talk about the 2nd house and those tarot cards?
You did. But this time it's Neptune that's opposing Saturn in that same area of your life.
Okay, so Neptune is the planet of dreams, illusions, and spirituality. What does Lorenzo say about this aspect?
He says this is going to further amplify the shattering of illusions that we talked about earlier, particularly when it comes to finances, relationships, and self-worth.
So anything we've been kidding ourselves about is going to become glaringly obvious.
Exactly. Lorenzo says that Neptune and Pisces can create a fog of deception, making it difficult to see things clearly. But this eclipse is going to pierce through that fog and expose any areas where you might be in denial or avoiding necessary endings.
Ouch. That sounds like it's going to be a rough awakening for some people.
It might be, but Lorenzo stresses that it's a necessary process. He says it's time to face reality no matter how uncomfortable it might be.
So no more burying our heads in the sand.
No more. He says you need to be brutally honest with yourself about your situation and what needs to change. And he links this to the Hanged Man tarot card, which represents surrender, letting go, and seeing things from a new perspective.
So it's like we're being forced to pause, reassess, and release anything that's no longer aligned with our true path.
Exactly. And the Moon and the Devil cards come back into play here, emphasizing the need to confront any fears or emotional attachments that might be holding you back.
Right. It's about facing those shadow aspects of ourselves and releasing anything that's keeping us trapped in a cycle of self-sabotage.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've got explosive change, financial reckoning, a shakeup on the home front, and a shattering of illusions. What's the final aspect Lorenzo talks about?
The fifth and final aspect is the conjunction to the South Node in Virgo in the 8th house. And he connects this one to the Devil, the Hermit, and Death.
Okay, so we're back to the South Node in the 8th house, karmic baggage and transformation. And with the Devil, the Hermit, and Death cards, this sounds like the grand finale of this cosmic drama.
It is. Lorenzo really emphasizes the finality of this aspect. He says this is the culmination of all the other aspects we've talked about. It's the point of no return where you have to let go of the past and embrace the transformation that's happening.
So no more second chances.
No more. He says this is the end of a karmic cycle and there's no going back to the way things were.
Wow, that's intense.
It is. But Lorenzo also offers a glimmer of hope here. He says that if you surrender to this energy, you can experience a rapid, almost instant transformation into a new reality. He calls it skipping levels.
Skipping levels, what does that mean?
He says that most people believe that transformation takes time, that you have to heal, process, grieve, and slowly rebuild. But he says that with this eclipse, if you truly surrender to the process, you can bypass all of that and step directly into a new reality.
So it's like fast-tracking your evolution.
Exactly. But he stresses that this is only possible if you're willing to fully let go of the past and embrace the unknown.
So it's about trusting the process even if it feels scary or uncertain.
Exactly. And he connects this to the Devil card by saying that you have to break free from any negative patterns or attachments that are holding you back.
Right, those karmic chains we've been dragging around for who knows how long.
Exactly. And then the Hermit card comes in, suggesting that you might need to take some time for introspection, to really connect with your inner wisdom and figure out what truly matters to you.
So it's about finding that inner compass and following it, even if it leads you off the beaten path.
Right. And finally, the Death card, which is often misunderstood, represents transformation, endings, and new beginnings. Lorenzo says that this card is a reminder that death is not the end, but a necessary part of the cycle of life.
So it's not about physical death, but about the death of the old self to make way for the new.
Exactly.
Wow, that was a lot of information to process. 5 major aspects, each with its own set of challenges and opportunities. It sounds like this eclipse is going to be a wild ride.
It definitely has the potential to be, but remember, we're just scratching the surface here. Lorenzo goes into even more detail in his full report.
Right. So for those who want to dive even deeper, Lorenzo's full report is available on his website. And stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll explore Lorenzo's specific predictions for Aquarius and what you can do to navigate this intense cosmic event.
Welcome back. We just, finished exploring those 5 major astrological aspects that Lorenzo says are influencing this upcoming eclipse.
Right.
So ready to dive into some more specifics about, how this might play out in your life as an Aquarius.
Yeah, definitely. After all those intense aspects, I'm, ready for some tangible advice on how to actually navigate this eclipse. What does Lorenzo suggest?
Well, he starts by introducing a fictional character named Lena. And she's going through a lot of the things we've been talking about, He uses her story as a way to kind of illustrate the themes of this eclipse.
Okay, so it's like a case study to help us connect the dots between, the astrology and real-life experiences.
Exactly. And remember, Lena's story is, it's just one example. How these themes play out in your life will be unique to you.
Right, of course. So tell me about Lena. What's her story?
Lorenzo starts with a prologue titled The Whisper Before the Storm. He describes Lena standing in her dimly lit apartment, feeling a sense of unease. He writes, "Outside, the night was too quiet, that eerie kind of silence before a storm. The world felt off balance, as if something unseen was shifting beneath the surface."
Ooh, that's a great way to set the scene. It really captures that feeling of anticipation and, and underlying tension.
Right. And Lorenzo goes on to say that, that Lena had been ignoring these feelings. For a long time, he writes, she had spent years convincing herself that her life was stable, that her choices were logical, that the weight in her chest was just stress, not a warning. But that night, staring at her own reflection in the window, she knew the reckoning had arrived.
Wow. So, like, it's like she knew deep down that something was about to change, but she was trying to, trying to ignore it.
Exactly, and that's something Lorenzo emphasizes throughout his analysis of this eclipse, the importance of listening to intuition, even when it's telling you something you don't want to hear.
Right. Because ignoring those inner whispers usually doesn't end well.
Exactly. So in chapter 1, titled The Tower Falls, things start to unravel for Lena.
Okay, so this is where that tower card energy we talked about earlier comes into play.
Yes. Lorenzo describes Lena going through her, her usual morning routine, feeling suffocated by her job and, in her life, and then she gets an email. A termination notice. Her job is gone. Just like that.
Wow, talk about a sudden shift. Like the rug was pulled out from under her.
Exactly, and Lorenzo describes Lena's reaction. He writes, she read it twice, her pulse hammering. Her job, her security net was gone. There was no warning, no second chance. Gone. Her stomach clenched, but deep down, she felt something unexpected. Relief.
Relief. That's, interesting.
It is, and it speaks to the idea that, that sometimes even the most difficult changes can be a blessing in disguise.
Right, because sometimes we need that external push to break free from, situations that are no longer serving us.
Exactly. So in chapter 2, The Devil at the Door, things get even more intense for Lena.
Okay, so the Devil card. That's about facing our shadow side, our fears, and our unhealthy attachments.
Right. And Lorenzo connects this to Lena's financial situation. He describes her landlord knocking on her door, demanding the rent that she can't afford to pay. And he writes, this wasn't just about money. This was about years of financial self-sabotage, of chasing dreams that never paid, of ignoring the gnawing truth that she had never learned how to stand on her own. And now the universe had decided it was time to learn.
Wow. So it's like she's being forced to confront the consequences of her past choices.
Exactly. And not just financial choices, but also, emotional choices.
What do you mean?
Lorenzo goes on to describe Lena, looking at messages from her ex, the ones she always went back to, not out of love, but, out of fear and a lack of self-worth. But this time, she deletes his number, choosing to break free from that toxic pattern.
So she's finally starting to take control of her life, even though everything seems to be, falling apart around her.
Right. And that's a key theme that Lorenzo emphasizes, the importance of taking ownership of your choices, even when it feels like you have no control.
Okay, so we've got the tower moment, the devil moment. What's next for Lena?
Chapter 3 is called The Fool's Escape.
The Fool card. That's that's interesting. What happens here?
Well, Lorenzo describes the eclipse, happening that night, and Lena watching it from her living room floor. He writes, that night the sky split open. The lunar eclipse glowed above, bright enough to feel like judgment.
Ooh, that's such a powerful image.
It is. And as Lena watches the eclipse, she starts to remember all the messages she's internalized over the years from her mother, her boss, her ex, messages that kept her small and afraid.
So it's like the eclipse is, illuminating all the limiting beliefs that have been holding her back.
Exactly. And Lorenzo describes her having a sudden realization. He writes, something inside her snapped. She grabbed a suitcase, threw in clothes, her laptop, a single book she loved but never had time to read. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she wasn't staying here. She walked out of that apartment and never looked back.
Wow. So she finally takes that leap of faith, embracing the fool's energy and stepping into the unknown.
Exactly, and Lorenzo emphasizes that she didn't have a plan. She just knew she had to get out of that situation. It was a purely intuitive move.
Right, because sometimes you just have to trust your gut and let go of the need to control everything.
Exactly, and that's where we leave Lena in part 2 of her story.
Okay, so she's left her job, her apartment, her toxic relationship. It sounds like she's completely stripped bare, ready for a fresh start.
Exactly, and that's what Lorenzo says, what he says this eclipse is all about, a complete stripping away of the old to make way for the new.
Wow. That's powerful. I'm eager to hear what happens next, for Lena and for all of us as we navigate this intense eclipse. Welcome back to Deep Dive. We left off with Lena escaping her old life and stepping into the unknown. What What happens next?
In Chapter 4, The Hermit's Truth, Lena ends up in this, coastal town,
Mhm.
alone for the first time in years. Lorenzo writes, she had spent the past 48 hours alone for the first time in years. No job, no obligations, no distractions, and it hit her like a cold wave against her chest. Her life had never been hers.
Wow, that's that's a powerful realization. It's like she's finally seeing her life from a completely objective perspective.
Right, and Lorenzo highlights how this, this isolation allows Lena to connect with, well, with her inner truth. He writes, she had spent decades clinging to systems, people, routines that made her feel secure, but all they had really done was trap her in fear. The eclipse hadn't destroyed her life, it had saved her from it.
So the eclipse was, well, it was actually a catalyst for her liberation, even though it felt like everything was, falling apart.
Exactly, and Lorenzo emphasizes that this is a common theme with, with eclipses, especially those that fall in the eighth house. They force us to confront our deepest fears and let go of anything that's no longer aligned with, well, with our soul's path.
So it's like like a cosmic intervention,
Mhm.
a wake-up call from the universe.
Exactly. And in the epilogue, The Star Rises, Lorenzo describes Lena standing on the cliffs feeling a sense of, renewal. He writes, she inhaled the salt air, letting it burn away the last remnants of the person she used to be. No more fear, no more excuses, just rebirth. Lena didn't have all the answers, but she had clarity. And that was more powerful than anything she had ever known, because when the universe burns down everything false, the only thing left is the truth. And finally, she was ready to live it.
That's such a beautiful and hopeful ending.
It is, and it really speaks to the transformative power of this eclipse. So Lorenzo says, this eclipse isn't here to hurt you. It's here to free you, but only if you let it.
So it's up to us to, to choose how we respond to this cosmic shift. We can resist and suffer, or we can surrender and allow ourselves to be, to be transformed.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next part of Lorenzo's analysis, where he dives deeper into this concept of, of surrender and what he calls the hidden karmic pattern no one talks about.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is this, hidden karmic pattern?
Well, Lorenzo starts by saying that, everyone will tell you that this March 14, 2025 lunar eclipse in Virgo is about release, transformation, karmic closures. But he says they're missing the real, the mind-blowing truth hidden in this celestial event. He writes, what if I told you this isn't just an eclipse? This is your karmic exit strategy.
Oh, that's a bold statement.
It is. And he goes on to, to explain that most astrologers and tarot readers focus on the endings that, that eclipses bring. But he says they're missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. He says, the lunar eclipse in Virgo, 10 of Pentacles, in the 8th house, death, conjunct the South Node, the devil, is not just about endings. It is about an expiration date on your old identity.
So it's not just about letting go. It's about recognizing that, that certain aspects of our lives have already reached their expiration date.
Exactly. And he really drives this point home by saying this eclipse is not about what you need to let go of. It's about what has already let go of you. This is not a choice. You are no longer allowed to be the person you were before. The karmic path you've been on, it's been shut down. The contract is void.
Wow. That's a powerful way to put it. It's like the universe is saying that chapter of your life is over. Time to move on.
Exactly. And he gives some examples of, of what this might look like. He writes, that toxic relationship you keep repeating, that dead-end job you justify staying in, that emotional baggage you keep recycling, it's already been erased from your karmic record. If you keep trying to go back, you will find nothing there.
So clinging to those things is, it's only going to cause more pain and suffering.
Exactly. He even says that if you try to stay in a situation that is already karmically closed, your body, mind, and soul will violently reject it.
Wow. That's intense.
It is, and he uses the analogy of, of a burned down house again. He says, it's like trying to walk into a house that burned down last night. You can try, but there's nothing left to enter.
Okay, so the message is clear. Let go or be dragged.
Exactly. And then he introduces this concept he calls the trapped soul phenomenon.
Trapped soul phenomenon. What is that?
He says it's a spiritual crisis that happens when your soul has moved ahead, but but your physical self refuses to follow. He writes, if you resist this eclipse's push forward, you will experience what I call the trapped soul phenomenon. This is when your soul has moved ahead, but your physical self refuses to follow.
So it's like being stuck between, between two worlds, unable to fully inhabit, either one.
Exactly. And he says that that people who experience this might have insomnia, financial chaos, health breakdowns,
Yeah.
and a lack of synchronicities in their lives.
So it's like the universe is trying to get their attention, but they're not listening.
Right. And Lorenzo emphasizes that this is not, not a punishment, but a natural consequence of resisting the flow of life. He says, this is not the universe punishing you. This is what happens when you try to live in a past life that no longer exists. You will feel lost, disoriented, and disconnected until you surrender and step into the path that has already been written for you.
So the key is to surrender to the process, even if it feels, even if it feels scary or uncertain.
Exactly. And that brings us to what Lorenzo calls the secret karmic doorway, which is, the possibility of skipping levels and experiencing instant transformation.
We talked about this earlier with Lena's story. How does Lorenzo, explain this?
He says, most people think karmic endings happen so we can start fresh. But that's not the full story. He says that this eclipse in the 8th house of death, rebirth, and shared power is exposing a hidden karmic pathway, one that most people will not recognize in time. If you are willing to fully surrender to the death of your past self, something incredibly rare happens. You skip levels.
Okay, so it's not just about letting go of the past. It's about completely surrendering to the, to the present moment and trusting that the universe has a plan for you.
Exactly. And he says that that with this level of surrender, transformation can happen instantly. He writes, most people believe that transformation takes time, that you have to heal, process, grieve, and slowly rebuild. But the truth is, some karmic debts are so fully paid that you don't have to start over. You can just step into the new life immediately.
So it's like leaping over the usual steps of grief and rebuilding and landing directly in a new reality.
Exactly. And he says, if you recognize that your old life has already expired, the transition will be instant. One day, you'll wake up feeling empty and lost. Then suddenly, if you surrender, you'll be handed the keys to an entirely new reality. This is a karmic fast track, but only for those who are brave enough to burn the past completely.
Wow, that's both, that's both exciting and terrifying.
It is, but Lorenzo emphasizes that that this level of transformation is only available to those who are truly ready to let go.
So it's a choice point.
Mhm.
We can cling to the past and suffer, or we can surrender to the present and and embrace the unknown.
Exactly, and that's what Lorenzo leaves us with, the choice. He reiterates his key message, saying, "This eclipse is not a warning; it's an invitation. Most people will waste time clinging to what is already dead. Will you? Or will you recognize that your new life is already waiting, if you're brave enough to step into it?"
That's a powerful question to ponder. The universe has already let go. The question is, will we?
Exactly.
Well, that was quite a deep dive. Lorenzo's analysis of this upcoming eclipse is both intense and and incredibly insightful.
It is, and whether you're feeling excited or terrified or maybe a bit of both, remember that this is a powerful opportunity for growth and transformation.
Absolutely. It's a time to face our fears, release what no longer serves us, and step boldly into the unknown.
And who knows, maybe we'll even get to skip a few levels along the way.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Lorenzo's predictions for the March 14th, 2025 lunar eclipse in Virgo.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of the cosmos.